The November rain taps a melancholy rhythm against my office window, each drop racing down the glass like it's trying to escape something. I've spread yesterday's newspaper across my desk, circling stories in red ink that nobody else would connect. Old habits, 20 years off the force, and I still can't stop looking for patterns in the chaos. The lamp on my desk casts just enough light to read by, leaving the corners of the room to gather shadows like old friends. 3 burglaries in the past month, all during church services. A missing dog found 10 miles from home. A substitute teacher hired mid-semester at Willowbrook Middle School. Nothing to connect them except the thin red circles I've drawn, like tiny nooses around each headline. I lean back in my chair, a relic from the 1970s that groans with every movement, threatening to finally collapse after a decade of empty threats. The coffee in my mug has gone cold, a skin forming on top like a scab over a wound. I drink it anyway. At my age, the bitterness is almost comforting. The radiator in the corner hisses and clanks, fighting a losing battle against the chill that seeps through the thin walls of this second-floor walk-up. I could afford better, but what would be the point? This place suits me. Worn around the edges, functional but forgettable, like its occupant. My phone hasn't rung in 3 days. Semi-retirement, they call it. Some days it feels more like a slow fade to invisibility. The knock on my door comes at 4:17 p.m. 3 quick raps, hesitant but urgent. Not the landlord. His knock sounds like he's trying to break down the door with his knuckles. Not a bill collector. They've given up on the personal touch. This is someone new, someone desperate. "It's open," I call, folding the newspaper and sliding it to the side of my desk. The woman who enters looks like she's been crying for hours. Her eyes are rimmed red, her mascara creating faint shadows beneath them. Brown hair pulled back in a hasty ponytail, a few strands escaping to frame a face that's pretty in an ordinary way, but drawn tight with worry. She's wearing scrubs under her rain jacket. A nurse, maybe. Mid-30s, wedding ring absent, but the skin around her finger slightly paler than the rest. "Mr. Marshall?" Her voice quavers slightly. "That's what it says on the door." I gesture to the chair across from my desk. "Have a seat, miss?" "Hayes. Jessica Hayes." She sits, perching on the edge of the chair like she might need to flee at any moment. Her hands twist together in her lap, fingers working nervously. "I'm sorry to come without an appointment. I got your name from Officer Ramirez down at the station. He said you handle unusual cases." I study her face, looking for the telltale signs of a client with something to hide. All I see is fear. Raw, unfiltered fear. "That depends on what you mean by unusual, Mrs. Hayes." "It's Ms.," she corrects automatically. "I'm not married, not anymore." She takes a deep breath. "It's about my son, Oliver. He's 12. He's making accusations about his new teacher at Willowbrook Middle. Says the man is dangerous, a criminal." I reach for my notepad, an old habit from my detective days. "Kids and teachers not getting along isn't exactly unusual territory, Ms. Hayes." "This is different." She leans forward, her voice dropping to just above a whisper. "Oliver says this teacher, Mr. Cooley, is the same man from a murder case, from 15 years ago. My pen pauses over the pad. 15 years ago, your son would have been... He wasn't even born yet, she finishes for me. That's why nobody believes him. But he described the case in detail, said the man had a distinctive scar on his right hand and a way of tilting his head when he's thinking. Things Oliver couldn't possibly know. I write down Cooley and scar on right hand in my notebook. Has Oliver ever shown interest in old crime cases before? Maybe he read about it somewhere? Jessica shakes her head, a strand of hair falling across her face. She tucks it behind her ear with trembling fingers. Oliver isn't like that. He reads fantasy books, plays video games, normal kid stuff. He's never shown any interest in true crime. And he described details that weren't in the papers, Mr. Marshall. What's the name of the case he mentioned? The Lakeside Yearbook case. She watches my face, looking for recognition. The name lands like a stone in my gut. I remember it, not my case, but one that made headlines across 3 counties. A high school photography teacher suspected of killing a student. The evidence was circumstantial. The teacher disappeared before charges could be filed, and the case went cold. One of those frustrating ones that haunts the department for years. Has Oliver told anyone else about this? I ask, keeping my voice neutral. He told his principal. They called me in for a meeting yesterday. Her mouth twists bitterly. They suggested therapy. Said Oliver was acting out because of stress at home. As if I don't know my own son. And what makes you think your son isn't just confused? Mistaken identity happens all the time. Her eyes flash with sudden anger. Because Oliver has never lied to me. Not about important things. And because he's scared, Mr. Marshall. Really scared. He doesn't want to go back to school. He cried himself to sleep last night. I put down my pen and lean back in my chair, studying her. There's a desperation in her posture, in the way her fingers keep twisting that tissue into shreds. It's the look of a parent who's running out of options. I'll look into it, I say finally. No promises. I'll need to speak with Oliver. Observe this teacher. If there's nothing there, you need to be prepared to hear that. Relief washes over her face, softening the worry lines around her eyes. That's all I'm asking. Just look. See what you see. She reaches into her purse and pulls out a folded check. When she slides it across the desk, I notice her hands are chapped around the knuckles, the hands of someone who washes them constantly. Definitely a nurse. My standard rate is $300 a day, plus expenses, I tell her. She nods. Whatever it costs, Oliver is all I have. As she stands to leave, I feel a familiar weight settling in my chest, that mixture of purpose and dread that comes with every new case. In my line of work, nobody ever brings good news through that door. Just mysteries, miseries, and messes that need cleaning up. I'll start tomorrow, I tell her. I'll want to see the school, talk to Oliver. He has lunch period at 11:30, she says. And thank you, Mr. Marshall, just thank you for believing us enough to look. I don't tell her that I don't believe or disbelieve yet. That's not my job. My job is to find the truth, however ugly or ordinary it might be. After she leaves, I turn back to the newspaper on my desk. The small headline about Willowbrook's new substitute teacher stares back at me, the red circle around it now seeming less random, more like a target. Willowbrook Middle School hunches against the November sky like an aging bureaucrat. All red brick and compromise, with windows that reflect nothing but clouds. I park my car 3 blocks away and walk, my collar turned up against the wind. Schools make me uneasy these days. Too many metal detectors and emergency protocols, too many reminders of how the world has changed since I was young enough to believe in safety. The visitor's badge they give me at the front office feels like a target pinned to my chest. I'm here to observe our district's teaching methods, I tell the attendance secretary, flashing a consultant ID that's just legitimate enough to pass a cursory inspection. Part of a county-wide assessment. I'd prefer to sit in unannounced if possible. She buys it or doesn't care enough to question it. Her fingers click over her keyboard, nails the color of dried blood tapping like tiny hammers. Room 237, Mr. Cooley. He's got 7th graders now, 8th grade after lunch. The hallways smell of industrial cleaner and adolescent anxiety. Lockers line the walls like metal sentinels, plastered with stickers that proclaim loyalties to bands I've never heard of. A janitor pushes a mop down the corridor, eyes fixed on the floor as if reading a message there. He doesn't look up as I pass. I find room 237 and pause outside, watching through the narrow window in the door. The classroom is arranged in a horseshoe of desks, posters of Shakespeare and Hemingway glowering from the walls. 20-some kids slouch in their chairs, a collection of hoodies and sneakers and carefully cultivated indifference. And there, at the front, is James Cooley. He's around 40, with the lean build of a distance runner. Dark hair cut short and neat, a blue button-down rolled to the elbows, khakis pressed to a knife edge. He stands with his back half turned to me, writing something on the whiteboard with a blue marker. His movements are economical, precise, a teacher comfortable in his domain. I slip inside and take a seat at the back, just another adult observer in a school used to them. None of the students look twice at me. Cooley glances over his shoulder, nods briefly in acknowledgement, and continues his lesson on the telltale heart. Poe understood something fundamental about guilt, he says, his voice measured and engaging. It's not the crime that destroys the criminal, but the criminal's own mind. I watch his hands as he gestures. His right hand moves through the air in graceful arcs, and there, a thin white scar that runs from the base of his thumb across his palm. Exactly as Jessica described. Common enough injury, but still, the first tick in the verification box. Cooley walks among the desks, asking questions that prod the students to think beyond the obvious. He has a way of tilting his head when listening to their answers, a slight angle to the right, as if physically turning their words over in his mind. Another tick. What makes the narrator unreliable? Cooley asks a girl with purple-streaked hair. He's nuts, she answers, and the class titters. Clinical terms, please, Ms. Ramirez, Cooley says with a smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes. But yes, his mental state compromises his perspective, which raises the question, how do we know what's real and what's imagined? The irony of the question isn't lost on me. I study his face, trying to match it to the grainy newspaper photos from the Lakeside yearbook case. There's a resemblance, but 15 years changes a person. His face is thinner now, more angular, with lines at the corners of his eyes that speak of stress or sleepless nights. I stay through the end of class, then follow the stream of students to the cafeteria. The lunchroom echoes with the clatter of trays and the rise and fall of adolescent voices. I scan the tables until I find him. Oliver Hayes, sitting alone at the end of a table, picking at a sandwich, his shoulders hunched as if trying to make himself smaller. He's a wisp of a kid, all knees and elbows, with dark hair that falls across his forehead and a perpetual furrow between his brows. His hoodie is too large, the sleeves rolled up to free his hands. He looks up as I approach, wariness immediately sharpening his features. "Oliver, I'm Ray Marshall. Your mom asked me to talk with you." Recognition flickers in his eyes. He glances around, then nods toward the empty seat across from him. I sit, noting how he subtly shifts to ensure he can see the entire cafeteria from his position. "She told me you might come," he says, his voice soft but steady. "You're investigating Mr. Cooley. I'm looking into your concerns," I correct gently. "Tell me what you've noticed about him." Oliver's hands flatten on the table, fingers splayed as if anchoring himself. "He's not who he says he is. He's Thomas Weber, the photography teacher from the Lakeside case." "What makes you so sure?" His eyes meet mine directly for the first time. They're dark and serious, too old for his face. The scar on his right hand. He got it trying to fix a dark room enlarger when it shattered, and the way he tilts his head when he's listening, like a bird, and how he taps his index finger twice before picking up anything. It's a ritual. He can't help it. I try to keep my expression neutral, but something cold slides down my spine. The tapping, I'd noticed it, but hadn't registered its significance. Twice, index finger, before picking up the marker, before taking a paper from a student. Those are very specific details, Oliver. How could you know about them? He looks down at his untouched lunch. You won't believe me. Nobody does. Try me. I've heard stranger things than you might think. Oliver takes a deep breath. I saw the file, the police file on Weber. I saw the interview videos where he does the tapping thing. I saw the photos of his hand after the enlarger accident. I saw everything. And how did you see these files? They wouldn't be public record. His fingers curl inward, nails scraping against the table surface. I just see things sometimes, things I shouldn't be able to see, about people. It started after I got really sick last year. High fever for days. When I got better, I started knowing things. I lean forward, lowering my voice. What kind of things, Oliver? Like how the lunch lady lost her wedding ring down the drain 3 months ago, but tells everyone her husband has it cleaned every year. Or how Mr. Peterson, the math teacher, hides vodka in his thermos. Or how Weber, Cooley, whatever his name is, has a tattoo of a blue flower on his ankle that wasn't in any of the newspaper stories. The blue flower detail hits me like a fist to the sternum. It wasn't in the papers because it was deliberately kept out of the public reports, a detail only the investigating officers would know. A detail that had been discovered after Weber disappeared when they searched his apartment and found sketches of the same blue flower drawn over and over, obsessively on dozens of pages. Does he know that you know? I ask, watching Oliver's face carefully. The boy's eyes dart to the cafeteria entrance, then back to me. I think so. He watches me different than the other kids. Yesterday he asked me to stay after class. Said he wanted to talk about my unique perspective. I told him I had a dentist appointment. His voice drops even lower. I don't want to be alone with him, Mr. Marshall. I nod, filing away his fear as genuine. You won't have to be. Have you told anyone else about this? About your ability to know things? Just my mom, and now you. He studies my face. You don't believe me either, do you? About how I know things. The truth is, I don't know what to believe. The details are too specific, too accurate to be coincidence or research. But the explanation, fever dreams and psychic visions, pushes against everything I've built my life around. Evidence, logic, the rational world. I believe you're telling me what you believe is true, I say carefully. And I'm going to keep looking into Mr. Cooley. Oliver's shoulders slump slightly. It's not the answer he wanted, but it's the most honest one I can give. The bell rings, signaling the end of lunch. Oliver gathers his mostly uneaten food and stands. He's dangerous, Mr. Marshall. I don't know exactly what he did back then, but it was worse than what they suspected. And he's going to do something bad here, too. I can feel it. I watch him shuffle away, just another kid in a sea of backpacks and sneakers. But the weight of his words hangs around my neck like a stone. The Hayes home sits at the end of a cul-de-sac, a modest ranch house with Halloween decorations still clinging to the porch rails like forgotten dreams. The porch light casts a yellow pool across the welcome mat as I approach. Inside, I can see the blue flicker of a television through the curtains, the ordinary glow of a kitchen light. Normal life, interrupted by whatever strangeness has taken hold of the boy inside. I knock, and my knuckles against the door sound hollow, like tapping on the lid of a box that might contain anything at all. Jessica answers, still in her scrubs, hair now loose around her shoulders. The lines around her eyes have deepened since this morning, tiny fault lines of worry. She steps back to let me in, her smile tight with effort. "Thank you for coming," she says, leading me through a living room cluttered with the detritus of single parenthood, a basket of unfolded laundry, medical textbooks stacked on an end table, a video game paused on the TV screen. "Oliver's in the kitchen. I made coffee. The kitchen is warm and smells of something baked recently. Cookies, maybe, or brownies. An attempt at normalcy." Oliver sits at the table, a math worksheet in front of him, pencil tapping against the paper in a distracted rhythm. He looks smaller here than at school, more vulnerable in a faded Star Wars t-shirt and flannel pajama pants. His sock-covered feet swing slightly, not quite reaching the floor. "Hello again, Oliver," I say, taking the seat across from him. He looks up, and that same wariness I saw at lunch is still there, but tempered slightly by the security of home. "Did you see it? The tapping thing he does?" I nod, accepting the mug of coffee Jessica slides in front of me. "I did. And the scar on his hand. And the head tilt." Oliver glances at his mother, a flash of vindication in his eyes. "I'd like to talk more about what you know," I say, pulling out my notebook. "About the Lakeside yearbook case. And about how you know it." Jessica hovers for a moment, then says, "I'll be in the living room if you need me," giving Oliver space to speak freely. When she's gone, I open my notebook to a fresh page. "Let's start from the beginning. When did you first notice something strange about Mr. Cooley?" Oliver pushes his math aside. "The first day he came to substitute. 3 weeks ago. I knew as soon as I saw him." His fingers trace invisible patterns on the table. "But I didn't say anything at first. I thought maybe I was wrong." "What convinced you that you weren't?" "The blue flower tattoo. When he reached up to write on the board, his sleeve pulled up, and I saw the edge of it on his ankle." Oliver's voice drops. "In the case file, they found drawings of that flower in his apartment. Lots of them, but they never knew why." I make a note, trying to keep my expression neutral. The blue flower detail wasn't something a child could have researched. It wasn't even in the official reports, just in the detective's personal notes. "Tell me more about these case files you've seen. What exactly do you mean when you say you see them?" Oliver fidgets, eyes dropping to the table. "It's like memories, but not mine. Like I'm remembering things I never experienced. At first I thought they were just weird dreams, but then things I saw in the dreams started matching up with real life." "And you see these memories about Mr. Cooley?" He nods. "Not just him. Sometimes it's other people too. The lunch lady, my science teacher, random people at the grocery store." A flicker of embarrassment crosses his face. "Mom had to tell me to stop telling people things about themselves. They don't like it." "I can imagine," I murmur. "These memories about Weber, Cooley, what specifically do you see?" Oliver's fingers curl into loose fists on the table. "I see him in a dark room, the red light making everything look like blood. He's developing pictures of students, girls mostly, but not normal school pictures. He followed them. They didn't know he was taking them." He swallows hard. "And there was one girl he was obsessed with. He had hundreds of pictures of her. In the parking lot. At the mall. Through her bedroom window." I jot this down, aware that these details, too, were never made public. "The girl's name was Rebecca Harlow," I say, testing him. "No," Oliver corrects immediately. "That's what the newspapers said, but it was wrong. Her real name was Rebecca Hollis. The police report had it right." A chill crawls up my spine. He's right. The name had been incorrectly reported and never corrected in the press. "Oliver, have you ever heard of the Pinewood Lake disappearance?" I ask suddenly, thinking of one of my own cold cases from years ago. A test. His eyes unfocus slightly, like he's looking at something far away. "The little girl who vanished from the summer camp? They thought she drowned, but you never believed it because her shoes were found neatly placed on the dock, laces tied. No child who was swimming would have tied her shoes before placing them." My pen freezes above the paper. That detail, about the tied shoelaces, had never been released to the public. It was something I had noted in my personal case file, a detail that had bothered me for 20 years. Something only I would know. How? I start, then stop, unable to frame the question in a way that makes sense in my understanding of the world. Oliver looks at me directly, his young face solemn. I told you, I see things I leave the Hayes house with Oliver's words rattling around my skull like loose change. The night air slaps me awake, cold and damp against my face. What that boy knows, what he couldn't possibly know, sits heavy in my gut, a leaden certainty I can't explain away with logic or coincidence. I've spent my life following evidence, building cases on facts you can touch and see. But sometimes truth comes wrapped in packages that don't make sense, and you either accept the gift or deny what's right in front of you. My car heater wheezes to life, pushing lukewarm air through the vents. I sit there, engine idling, streetlight casting shadows across my knuckles on the steering wheel. The tied shoelaces. No one knew about that detail except me, not even my partner at the time. It was just a note in my personal file, a splinter under my skin that never worked its way out. What Oliver described isn't possible, and yet I reach for my phone and scroll through contacts until I find Mendez. We worked homicide together for 12 years, and he owes me for that mess in Euro 7 that I helped bury. He's night shift dispatch now, counting the days until retirement. Ray? His voice comes through grainy with sleep. It's almost midnight, man. I need a favor, Luis. The Lakeside yearbook case from 15 years back. Weber, the photography teacher. A pause, the sound of him sitting up. Jesus, Ray, why you digging that one up? Just following a hunch. I need the full file, the stuff that didn't make the papers. That's Benson's case. He's still sensitive about it going cold. Benson's fishing in Florida. Been gone 5 years. Nobody's going to care. I let silence fill the space. Mendez knows I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. He sighs. I can get you a copy. But you didn't get it from me. Never do. Next morning, I'm parked outside the public library before it opens, nursing a coffee gone tepid and a headache that throbs behind my right eye. The Lakeside yearbook case file sits in a manila envelope on the passenger seat, acquired from a tired-looking Mendez in an all-night diner parking lot at 2 a.m. I've been through it twice already, the details burning into my brain. Weber, photography teacher, suspected of stalking and potentially kidnapping student Rebecca Hollis, misreported in the papers as Harlow. Evidence circumstantial. Hundreds of photos of her found in his apartment darkroom. Vanished before arrest. Blue flower tattoo on ankle, not in public reports. Tapping gesture before handling objects, noted in detective's personal observations during initial interview. All exactly as Oliver described. The library opens, and I'm first through the doors. The reference librarian eyes me suspiciously. Men my age don't usually burst in at opening time with the intensity of someone tracking a suspect. Yearbooks, I tell her, Lakeside High, 15 years ago, and Willowbrook staff directories last 5 years. She directs me to the local history section where dusty yearbooks fill 3 shelves. I pull the one I need, Lakeside High, 2008, and find the faculty section. Thomas Weber stares back at me, younger but unmistakable. Same eyes, same slight asymmetry to his smile. I use my phone to take photos, comparing them to recent staff photos I found online of James Cooley. Not identical, 15 years will change anyone, but the bones of the face match. Same ear shape, same hairline, though grayer now. Most telling, the habit of tilting his head slightly in photos, always to the right. I spend the next hour building a timeline of James Cooley's supposed career, cross-referencing with news reports of Weber's disappearance. Cooley materialized 8 years ago at a private school in Oregon, references all checking out but impossible to verify deeply. 3 schools in 8 years, moving east each time. No social media presence. Minimal digital footprint. Gaps in his history that could be filled with anything. By the time I leave the library, my notebook is filled with connections, and the ghost of Weber is superimposed over Cooley's face in my mind. Same man. I'd bet my life on it. Principal Harding's office smells of furniture polish and administrative tedium. Awards and certificates cover one wall, the kind of self-congratulatory display that always makes me think someone's compensating for something. Harding himself sits behind a desk too large for the room, a balding man with glasses perched on a nose that's been broken at least once. His handshake is firm but clammy. "Mr. Marshall, was it? How can I help you?" His smile doesn't reach his eyes, which remain cautious, assessing. "I'm investigating a concern about one of your staff, James Cooley." Harding's expression doesn't change, but his fingers tap once against his desk. "Are you with the police?" "Private investigator, hired by a parent. The Hayes woman." It's not a question. His mouth tightens. "We've already addressed her concerns. Her son is a troubled boy with an active imagination." I pull out my notebook. "Troubled enough to know details about a 15-year-old case that were never made public? Troubled enough to recognize a man who changed his identity?" "What exactly are you implying?" "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating that James Cooley is Thomas Weber, a man who disappeared before he could be arrested for stalking and possibly worse. I have evidence from the original case file that matches Oliver Hayes's descriptions perfectly." Harding's face flushes red. "That's a serious accusation. Mr. Cooley passed all our background checks. His references were impeccable." "References can be faked. Background checks only work if you're using your real name. And you expect me to take the word of a 12-year-old boy with known behavioral issues over our established hiring processes?" Harding removes his glasses, polishing them with a handkerchief. "A delaying tactic I've seen 1,000 times from people trying to think their way out of uncomfortable situations. I expect you to prioritize student safety over administrative convenience." His lips press into a bloodless line. "Mr. Marshall, this school has procedures. If you have concerns about a staff member, file them through proper channels. The board will review," "By which time anything could happen," I cut in. "I've seen the case file, Harding. Weber was dangerous, obsessive. He had hundreds of photos of that girl, including some taken through her bedroom window, and now he's teaching children in your school." Harding replaces his glasses, his movements precise and controlled. "What would you have me do? Fire a teacher based on a child's fantasy and your amateur detective work? Do you know what kind of liability that would create? The disruption to our students' education? So your concern is liability, not safety. My concern is this institution, which serves hundreds of children, not just Oliver Hayes." Harding stands, signaling the end of our meeting. "If you have concrete evidence, take it to the police. Otherwise, I suggest you let this go before you create a panic over nothing." I remain seated. "And if I'm right? If Cooley is Weber? If something happens to one of your students that could have been prevented?" A flicker of discomfort crosses his face, quickly masked. "Then that would be regrettable. But I make decisions based on facts, not speculation. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a school to run." I stand slowly, tucking my notebook away. "I'll be watching, Harding, and collecting more evidence. When, not if, I confirm Cooley's real identity, I'll make sure everyone knows you were warned." As I walk out, his voice follows me. "Mr. Marshall, keep in mind that spreading unfounded accusations about our staff could be considered defamation. The district takes such matters very seriously. The threat hangs in the air between us." I don't bother responding. Men like Harding have always existed, guardians of systems, not people, defenders of reputations, not truth. I've been butting heads with them my entire career. But this time, there's a 12-year-old boy who somehow knows the impossible and a man with a hidden past teaching in his classroom. The stakes feel different, personal somehow, in a way I can't quite articulate. As I leave the building, I catch a glimpse of Cooley through an open classroom door. He's writing on the board, back to the room, utterly at ease. His right hand makes that tapping gesture before picking up an eraser. Once, twice, exactly as Oliver described. Our eyes meet briefly as I pass. Something flickers across his face. Recognition? Concern? Before his teacher's mask slips back into place. Game on, Weber, I think. Game on. I park across from the school playground, watching through chain link as kids pour out for recess like prisoners granted yard time. My coffee's gone cold again. The story of my life these days. But I barely notice as I scan the clusters of children for Oliver. I find him eventually, a solitary figure hunched on a bench near the building, a book propped on his knees like a shield. Even from here, I can see the careful way he holds himself, the practiced invisibility of a kid who's learned that attention usually means trouble. 3 boys approach Oliver, their body language telling a story as old as schoolyards. The tallest one snatches Oliver's book, holding it overhead while the others laugh. I can't hear what they're saying, but I don't need to. Their mouths form exaggerated shapes that might be freak or psycho. The vocabulary of adolescent cruelty is limited but effective. Oliver doesn't fight back, just sits with his hands in his lap, eyes fixed on the ground. A teacher on duty eventually notices and intervenes, retrieving the book. The boys scatter, but the damage is done. Oliver takes the book back without looking up, a ritual he's clearly familiar with. The teacher says something to him, probably useless platitudes about ignoring them, then moves on. Oliver remains alone, smaller somehow than he was before. I think about the background check I ran on Cooley last night. 8 years of employment history, all verifiable on paper, but the schools themselves were suspiciously vague when I called. Yes, he worked here, and little else. His college transcripts showed a degree from Benson University, which closed its doors 6 years ago, conveniently taking its records with it. His driver's license is only 5 years old, renewed once. Credit history begins 8 years back, precisely when James Cooley supposedly started teaching. A ghost fabricated on paper. I turn my attention back to the playground. The boys who harassed Oliver are now huddled near the basketball court, occasionally glancing his way. One mimes a stabbing motion, another grabs his throat in mock horror, making fun of the kid who claims his teacher is a killer. Children can be breathtakingly cruel. When the bell rings, signaling the end of recess, I wait until the yard empties before heading into the school. My educational consultant badge gets me past the front office again. This time, I make my way to the administrative section, where a middle-aged woman with glasses hanging from a beaded chain types at a computer with methodical precision. "Can I help you?" she asks, eyeing my badge without quite believing it. "I hope so," I say, offering my most harmless smile. "I'm reviewing staff qualifications for the district assessment. I noticed Mr. Cooley's file is missing some information." Her fingers pause over the keyboard. "What kind of information?" "Contact information for his previous employers, standard verification stuff. I'm not authorized to—" Of course, I interrupt gently. "But you'd know better than anyone if there were any irregularities in his hiring. The district is very concerned about process these days." A hesitation. She glances at the closed door to Harding's office, then lowers her voice. "His references checked out, but..." I wait, letting silence do the work. There was a gap in his employment history. 2 years unaccounted for between Oregon and his job in Colorado. When I asked, he said he was caring for a sick parent. She adjusts her glasses. I remember because he didn't have a contact number for that period. Said they were living off-grid. Who lives off-grid these days? Who indeed, I murmur. Any other irregularities? Paperwork issues? Background check flags? She hesitates again, professional discretion warring with the universal urge to gossip. His fingerprint card had to be redone. The first one came back unclear. He said it was a lab error. Her eyes narrow slightly. Is there something wrong with Mr. Cooley's file? Just being thorough, I assure her, jotting notes. One more thing. Did he ever mention where he was before Oregon? Any family, friends from back then? No, he keeps to himself. Friendly enough, but private. She looks at her computer screen, then back at me. Why are you really asking these questions? I ignore her question with one of my own. Does he ever do this? I tap my index finger twice on her desk. Her eyes widen slightly. Yes, before picking things up. It's a habit some of the teachers tease him about. She leans forward. Are you with the police? Thank you for your time, I say, backing toward the door. You've been very helpful. I find the staff lounge easily enough. The smell of burnt coffee and microwaved leftovers is universal to workplace break rooms everywhere. Inside, a few teachers sit around a scratched table, eating lunches packed in containers that have seen better days. They look up when I enter, conversation pausing. Mind if I get some coffee? I ask, holding up my empty travel mug. A woman with hair dyed an improbable shade of auburn waves toward the coffee maker. Help yourself, just don't expect much. I pour the tarry liquid into my mug, using the moment to scan the room. Photos on a bulletin board show staff at various functions, holiday parties, retirements, award ceremonies. Cooley appears in only a few, always at the edges, never quite part of the group. You're the consultant, right? Auburn hair asks, checking out our teaching methods? Among other things, I say vaguely. How long have you all worked with Mr. Cooley? A few shrugs, non-committal murmurs. Since September, one offers. He's a sub, not regular staff. Keeps to himself, says another. Good teacher, though. Kids like him. Not all of them, Auburn hair says, then looks like she regrets speaking. You mean the Hayes boy? I prompt. Uncomfortable glances are exchanged. That kid's got issues, a balding man in a sweater vest says flatly, saying weird stuff about everyone, not just Cooley. What kind of weird stuff? Things he couldn't know. Private things. Auburn hair lowers her voice. He told Mrs. Fletcher that her husband was cheating with his dental hygienist. Turned out to be true. The room falls silent as the door opens. James Cooley walks in, a brown bag lunch in one hand. He stops when he sees me, surprise flickering across his face before settling into polite inquiry. I don't believe we've met, he says, extending his hand. James Cooley. I take his hand, noting the firm grip, the careful control. Ray Marshall, educational consultant. Interesting timing for a consultation. His smile doesn't reach his eyes. Almost midway through the semester. Best time to observe established routines, I reply, matching his tone. He sets his lunch on the table, tapping twice before opening the bag. And what have you observed so far? Quite a bit. I sip my coffee, grimacing at the bitter taste. You've made quite an impression in a short time. I try to connect with my students. Some more than others? His eyes harden fractionally. I give all my students equal attention, Mr. Marshall. Of course. I set my mug down. I've been hearing interesting things about your teaching methods, your background. The other teachers are watching now, heads swiveling between us like spectators at a tennis match. My methods are fairly standard, Cooley says, unwrapping a sandwich with meticulous care. As for my background, 14 years teaching experience, masters in education, nothing particularly interesting there. 14 years? I ask. I thought it was 8. A pause, almost imperceptible. 14 years total experience, 8 years classroom teaching. And before that? His smile tightens. Various jobs, finding my way, like most people do. And before that? College, I assume? Mr. Marshall, he says, voice cooled by several degrees, is there a purpose to this interrogation? Just getting to know the staff, I say with a shrug. Part of my assessment process. Well, I'm an open book. He takes a bite of his sandwich, chewing deliberately. Though I'm curious why an educational consultant would be asking such personal questions. Before I can respond, the door swings open again. A man in gray coveralls enters, pushing a mop bucket. The janitor, the same one I noticed on my first visit, eyes perpetually fixed on the floor. He freezes when he sees the room is occupied. Sorry, he mumbles. Can come back later. No need, John, auburn hair says. We're just chatting. John the janitor edges into the room, keeping his back to the wall as he empties the trash can. His eyes dart to Cooley, then away, a nervous tick. Actually, I say, standing, I should be going. Reports to write, you know how it is. I glance at Cooley. I'm sure we'll talk again soon. I look forward to it, he replies, the threat beneath his words clear as glass. I follow the janitor out, catching him in the hallway. Excuse me, John, is it? Got a minute? He stops, shoulders hunching defensively. Didn't do nothing wrong. I know that. I just want to ask about Mr. Cooley. John's eyes dart up, then back to the floor. Don't know nothing. You sure about that? You seem nervous around him. A moment of silence, then. He stays late. After everyone leaves, locks his classroom door. I see the light under it, sometimes till midnight. What's he doing in there? John shrugs. Not my business. He hesitates, then adds, but sometimes I hear voices, like he's talking to someone, but there's never anybody else. Thank you, John, I say, slipping him a 20. If you notice anything else unusual, call me. I hand him my card. He pockets both without looking at them, then shuffles away, mop bucket rattling down the hall. As I exit the building, the hair on the back of my neck prickles. I glance back to see Cooley watching from a second-floor window, his expression unreadable behind the reflection on the glass. Not hiding his surveillance, wanting me to know I'm being watched. In the parking lot, I find a note tucked under my windshield wiper. Plain white paper, typed message. Some questions are dangerous to ask. For everyone involved. No signature needed. The game has escalated, and Oliver is caught in the middle. Night has claimed my office, shadows pooling in the corners like spilled ink. The single lamp on my desk creates a small island of light where I've spread the case files in overlapping layers. My eyes burn from staring at small print for hours, and the dregs of my whiskey have gone warm in the glass by my elbow. The janitor stopped knocking hours ago. Even the traffic outside has faded to occasional whispers of passing cars. But sleep isn't an option, not with the pieces finally starting to click into place. The Lakeside yearbook case file lies open beside printouts of Cooley's employment records. Photos of Thomas Weber and James Cooley stare up at me, 15 years apart, but unmistakably the same man. Between them, I've placed Oliver's eerily accurate descriptions, transcribed from our conversations. The school empties like a body bleeding out, students flowing toward exits, voices fading into the crisp afternoon air. I lean against my car in the far corner of the parking lot, watching the exodus through a veil of cigarette smoke I don't usually indulge in. The evidence file sits heavy in my briefcase, its weight more psychological than physical. 15 years of Weber's deception reduced to papers and photographs, waiting to be laid bare in front of the man who thinks he's buried his past completely. I check my watch. 3:45 p.m. Most teachers will be gone within the hour, but Cooley stays late. The janitor confirmed it. I've timed this deliberately, wanting to catch him alone, but not too late that the building's completely empty. A calculated risk. My phone vibrates in my pocket. A text from Mendez. In position. He's parked 2 blocks away, ready if things go south. It's not official backup, but it's something. The sun begins its descent, shadows stretching across the asphalt like fingers reaching for something lost. I stamp out my cigarette and head toward the building, badge already in hand for the security guard who barely glances at it. The hallways smell of floor polish and adolescence, that peculiar mix of disinfectant and hormones that permeates all schools. My footsteps echo against the linoleum, each one carrying me closer to a confrontation 15 years in the making. Though Cooley doesn't know that yet. Room 237. Light spills from beneath the closed door, a thin gold line separating truth from deception. I adjust my coat, feeling the weight of the small recorder in my pocket, and knock 3 times. "Come in," calls a voice from inside, measured, controlled, the voice of a man who has spent years perfecting his performance. Cooley sits at his desk, papers arranged in neat stacks before him, red pen in hand. He looks up, surprise flickering across his features, before settling into something carefully neutral. His right hand performs that telltale tap-tap against the desktop. "Mr. Marshall," he says, setting down his pen. "This is unexpected." "Is it?" I step inside, closing the door behind me. The click feels final, like the sound of a cell door locking. "I think we both knew this conversation was coming." "Did we?" "I was under the impression your consultation was complete." His eyes follow me as I approach, watchful as a predator assessing threat. "Let's drop the pretense." I set my briefcase on a student desk and pop the latches. "I know who you are, Thomas Weber, or should I say Roger Baines? Or maybe David Cartwright from Lakeside High?" The change is subtle, a tightening around his eyes, a slight shift in posture like a snake coiling before striking. But his smile remains fixed, professional. "I'm not sure what you're implying, but my name is James Cooley. It's on my driver's license, my teaching certificate, my—" "Your fabricated identity," I finish for him, pulling out the file. "Did you know fingerprints never truly change? Even when you try to burn or cut them off, the pattern eventually returns. The body remembers what the mind tries to forget." I lay photographs on his desk, Weber, then Baines, then Cartwright, and finally Cooley. Different names, different years, same man. His eyes flick to them, then back to me, something dangerous awakening behind his gaze. "These men share a passing resemblance. I'll grant you that." His voice remains steady, but his fingers have stopped their tapping. "But this witch hunt based on a troubled child's fantasy is bordering on harassment, Mr. Marshall. Oliver Hayes isn't the source of these photos," I say, laying down another piece of evidence, the police report Mendez found. 3 identities before Cooley, all photography or substitute teachers, all leaving abruptly when questions were raised. All with the same M.O., observing, photographing young students without their knowledge. Circumstantial at best, delusional at worst. He stands slowly, smoothing his tie. "You have no actual evidence connecting me to these men or any wrongdoing." "The blue flower tattoo on your ankle," I counter. "The one you got in college after your first girlfriend left you for your roommate. The one you draw compulsively when you're planning. The one only mentioned in Detective Benson's personal notes on the Weber case, never made public." That lands. A muscle in his jaw twitches, the first real crack in his facade. And the tapping, I continue, demonstrating the gesture with my own index finger. Twice before you touch anything. A ritual that started after your mother's death, when you were 12. A detail only someone who'd studied the original interview tapes would know. You've clearly constructed an elaborate fantasy. His voice has cooled several degrees. One that would be laughable if it weren't so potentially damaging to my reputation. I should warn you that defamation. Save the threats, I interrupt. I'm not here to arrest you. I don't have that authority anymore. I'm here to let you know that your time at Willowbrook is over. You can leave quietly, or I can take what I have to the police and the school board. Your choice. He circles the desk, reducing the distance between us, a predator testing boundaries. And what exactly do you think you have? A collection of photos of men who look similar? Some behavioral tics that could describe thousands of people? The imagination of a child who clearly needs psychological help. I hold my ground, though every instinct screams to maintain distance. I have enough to start an official investigation. Enough to make the school put you on administrative leave while they verify your credentials more thoroughly. Enough to end this chapter of your performance. Something shifts in his eyes. A calculation being made, a risk assessed. You're bluffing, he says softly. You wouldn't be here alone if you had enough for the police. Am I? I reach for my phone. Should we find out? His hand shoots out, faster than I expected, gripping my wrist. Not hard enough to hurt, just enough to stop. His face is inches from mine now, the careful teacher mask slipping to reveal something colder beneath. You have no idea what you're interfering with, he says, voice barely above a whisper. Some observations are necessary. Some secrets need to be witnessed before they're buried. You don't understand the red moment when everything becomes clear. My pulse quickens. The red moment. A phrase from Weber's journals, his personal description of the instant a photograph develops under the dark room's red light, the moment when, as he wrote, truth emerges from nothing. A phrase never published, known only to those who read the original evidence. Cooley sees the recognition in my eyes and releases my wrist, stepping back as if burned. We stare at each other, the slip hanging in the air between us. The red moment, I repeat. Interesting choice of words for someone who claims no connection to Thomas Weber. His face empties of expression, a complete shutdown. When he speaks again, his voice is different, harder, stripped of its cultivated warmth. I think this conversation is over, Mr. Marshall. I have papers to grade. But it's too late. We both know it. The recorder in my pocket has what I need. The verbal fingerprint to match the physical ones he's tried so hard to erase. You're right, I say, gathering the photos back into my briefcase. This conversation is over, and so is your time hiding behind the name James Cooley. As I turn to leave, his voice follows me, soft enough that the recorder might miss it. You have no idea what you're uncovering. Some doors should stay closed, Detective, for everyone's sake. I don't correct his use of my old title. The slip feels deliberate this time, a reminder that he knows things about me too, that the hunt goes both ways. In the hallway, the fluorescent lights flicker overhead, casting strange shadows that seem to move of their own accord. I pull out my phone to call Mendez, the weight of what just happened settling into my bones. I have what I need, the slip, the confirmation, but I've also shown my hand to a predator who's survived by disappearing when cornered, and something in his eyes tells me he's not planning to simply vanish this time. The hallway stretches before me like the long exhale after holding your breath underwater. I've got him. The slip, the red moment, plays back in my mind, Weber's voice coming through Cooley's mouth like a ghost speaking through a medium. My fingers are already dialing Mendez when movement at the end of the corridor catches my eye, a small figure darting between shadows, hugging the wall like someone who knows they shouldn't be there. My stomach drops as recognition hits. Oliver Hayes, who's supposed to be safe at home, is here in the building with a predator who now knows he's been exposed. "Oliver!" I hiss, keeping my voice low but urgent. The boy freezes, then turns toward me, relief washing over his face. He runs to me, sneakers squeaking against the polished floor, backpack bouncing awkwardly against his thin frame. "Mr. Marshall," he gasps out of breath. "I had to come. I had to warn you." I grab his shoulder, steering him toward an empty classroom. "Your mother promised to keep you home. Do you have any idea how dangerous—" "She doesn't know I'm here," he interrupts, eyes wide with a fear that stops my lecture cold. "I climbed out my window. I had to come because I saw another one. In my head, like with Cooley." I close the classroom door behind us, scanning the empty room from habit. Old instincts die hard. "Another what, Oliver?" "Another person from the case." His hands twist the straps of his backpack, knuckles white with strain. "She was there at Lakeside, too. She helped him, and she's here now." A chill crawls up my spine despite the stuffy classroom air. I crouch to his level, forcing my voice to remain calm when everything inside me is suddenly on high alert. "Who, Oliver? Who else is involved?" "Ms. Garner." He says the name like it might summon her. "The secretary, the one with the glasses on the chain and the blue cardigans. The woman who told me about Cooley's hiring irregularities, the woman who mentioned his fingerprints needing to be redone, the woman I stupidly revealed my suspicions to. How do you know she's connected?" I ask, though something in me already believes him. After everything else he's known that he couldn't possibly know, doubting him seems like the greater leap of faith. "In the case files, she's not called Garner. Her name was Karen Levitt back then." Oliver's eyes unfocus slightly, that same distant look I've seen before when he's accessing knowledge he shouldn't have. "She was a student teacher at Lakeside when Weber was there. They were together. She helped him get darkroom supplies, kept lookout while he developed the secret photos, told people he was with her when he was actually following Rebecca." My mind races through the case files, the names, the witness statements. Karen Levitt. It was there, a footnote in Benson's report. A student teacher interviewed briefly and dismissed as irrelevant to the case. No photo in the file. No follow-up. "There's more," Oliver continues, the words tumbling out now. "She knew what he was doing to the girls, not just the photos. The boy swallows hard. "He hurt them. Not just Rebecca. Others too. They never told because he threatened them. She helped him get away when the police started investigating. She's the one who told him to change his name, move schools. They've been doing it together all this time." I straighten, feeling suddenly old and slow. "Oliver, how much of this did you tell your mother?" He shakes his head. "None of it. These memories? They came after you left last night. I saw them in my dreams. Ms. Garner and Mr. Cooley in a dark room together. Her helping him load a car before the police came. Her sending him messages to coordinate where to meet next." His voice drops to a whisper. "People disappearing, not just moving away like everyone thought. The implications hit me like a physical blow. Not just an obsessive photographer with boundary issues, not just false identities and inappropriate fixations, something much darker with victims whose faces we don't know, and two predators working in tandem, not one." "If Garner's been here longer than Cooley," I begin. "She helps pick the substitutes," Oliver finishes for me. "She brought him here on purpose. They've done this before. They pick a school. She gets established first, then brings him in when it's safe." I reach for my phone again, but Oliver grabs my wrist. You can't call the police yet, he says, urgency sharpening his voice. They're planning to leave tonight. They know you are asking questions. They have a meeting in the gym in 15 minutes to coordinate. If you call the police now, they'll be gone before anyone arrives. How do you know that? I heard them, he says simply. Not with my ears, with whatever this is. He taps his temple. They're scared. They're going to destroy evidence in the storage closet behind the gym. Photos, records, things that could identify the girls from other schools. My hand hovers over the phone. The rational part of me says to call Mendez immediately, get squad cars here, do this by the book. But the cop in me, the one who's seen guilty men walk on technicalities, the one who knows how evidence can disappear in the time it takes for paperwork to clear, hesitates. Oliver, I need you to leave the building right now. Go home, lock the doors, and wait for my call. He shakes his head, a stubbornness settling into his jaw that reminds me of his mother. If I leave, you won't know if they change plans. I can feel them. Know what they're thinking. You need me. What I need is for you to be safe, I counter. You've done your part, more than your part. If they get away, they'll just do it again somewhere else, Oliver says, a maturity in his eyes that no 12-year-old should possess. More girls will get hurt. Like in my dreams, I feel the weight of the recorder in my pocket, the evidence I already have against Cooley. It would be enough to start an investigation, probably enough for a warrant. But if what Oliver says is true, if there's physical evidence about to be destroyed, evidence of crimes worse than stalking, waiting means losing it forever. 5 minutes, I say finally. You stay by the main entrance, out of sight. If anyone comes toward you, you run. You understand me? You run and you don't look back. Relief washes over his face. I understand. And if I'm not back in 20 minutes, you call this number. I scribble Mendez's direct line on a scrap of paper. Tell him everything you told me. Oliver takes the paper, folding it carefully into his pocket. What are you going to do? I check my watch. 10 minutes until their supposed meeting in the gym. Enough time to circle around, enter from the rear doors, catch them in the act. I'm going to make sure they don't disappear again, I tell him, and I'm going to find out who else they've hurt. As we slip back into the hallway, I'm struck by the absurdity of the situation. Taking direction from a child with impossible knowledge, walking into a potentially dangerous confrontation without backup. But the certainty in Oliver's eyes, the details he couldn't possibly know through conventional means, leave me little choice. Remember, I whisper as we approach the main entrance, 5 minutes, then out the door. He nods, those 2 old eyes holding mine for a moment. Be careful, Mr. Marshall. They're desperate, and they've done things when desperate before. I watch him take position near the entrance, partially hidden behind a display case of student artwork, before I turn and head toward the gymnasium. The recorder in my pocket feels suddenly inadequate protection against whatever waits for me there. The afternoon sun slants through windows, casting long shadows across the empty hallways. The school feels wrong somehow, hollow and threatening, like a familiar dream twisted into nightmare territory. I move quietly, years of training taking over, my senses alert for any sound that doesn't belong. And somewhere in this building, 2 predators prepare to erase their tracks and disappear like ghosts, unless I can stop them. The gymnasium door opens with a whisper of well-oiled hinges, a slice of darkness greeting me like the mouth of something hungry. I slip inside, letting the door ease shut behind me, conscious of every sound, my breathing, the soft shuffle of my shoes against polished hardwood, the distant murmur of voices from the far end near the equipment room. The overhead lights are dimmed to half-strength, casting the basketball court in twilight shadows while illuminating 2 figures huddled near the storage area. Cooley stands watch, his posture tense as a wound spring, while Garner, the woman I'd dismissed as an unremarkable secretary, methodically feeds stacks of what look like photographs into a metal trash can. "Don't bother burning the evidence," I call out, my voice echoing in the cavernous space. "It won't change what you've done, Karen." Both heads snap up, Cooley's hand instinctively reaching toward his pocket. Garner freezes, a handful of photographs clutched to her chest like precious things. Up close, I can see her differently now. Not just the forgettable school secretary with her beaded glasses chain and sensible shoes, but a woman with sharp eyes and a mouth set in a permanent line of calculation. "Mr. Marshall," she says, her voice surprisingly steady. "You're mistaken. I'm simply helping James clear out some old classroom materials." "Drop the act," I say, advancing slowly across the court. "I know who you both are, Thomas Weber and Karen Levitt, the darkroom duo from Lakeside High. 15 years running the same game at different schools." Cooley steps forward, positioning himself between me and the trash can. "You have an active imagination, Mr. Marshall, and a dangerous habit of making accusations without proof. I have proof." I pull out my phone, displaying the recording app. "Your slip-up about the red moment, the fingerprints that needed to be redone, the pattern of employment at schools where children later reported inappropriate behavior that was covered up with the help of an administrator. At Lakeside, it was an assistant principal. Here, it's the secretary who processes all the hiring paperwork. Garner's composure slips just a fraction. You have theories, coincidences, nothing that would stand up to scrutiny. What about those?" I nod toward the photographs in her hand. "The ones you're so eager to destroy? What would I find if I looked through them? More stalker shots like the ones Weber took at Lakeside? Or something worse?" "You're trespassing," Cooley says coldly. "This is a private meeting after school hours." "A meeting to coordinate your escape," I counter. "Just like after Lakeside, and Ridgemont, and the others." "How many schools, Karen? How many children?" Her face hardens, the mask of the unassuming secretary falling away completely. "You understand nothing. We protected them, watched over them when no one else would. Is that what you call it? Stalking children through windows? Following them to malls, parks, homes?" I take another step closer. "The photos say different, and so do the missing persons reports that spike wherever you two set up shop." A new voice cuts through the tension. "I've heard enough." Mendez steps through the door behind me, badge displayed, hand resting on his service weapon. The cavalry I didn't call but desperately needed. "Luis," I acknowledge without taking my eyes off Cooley, whose hand still hovers near his pocket. "Perfect timing. Got worried when you didn't call back," Mendez says, moving to flank me. "Good thing your boy Oliver had my number. Oliver." I silently thank the kid for disobeying my instructions to wait. "Karen Levitt and Thomas Weber," Mendez continues formally. "You're both persons of interest in an ongoing investigation into multiple disappearances across 3 states. I'm going to need you to step away from each other and keep your hands visible." Cooley's eyes dart toward the exit doors, calculating. Garner's fingers tighten on the photographs. "Don't," I warn Cooley, seeing the decision forming in his eyes. "It's over. We know about the girls, the ones who didn't just get photographed, the ones who disappeared." "You know nothing," Garner hisses, suddenly animated, her cardigan sliding off one shoulder to reveal a surprisingly muscular arm. "We saved them, from homes that didn't want them, from lives that would have destroyed them." "By destroying them first?" I ask. "By keeping them in dark rooms and basements? Is that what those photos show?" More doors open, the main entrance to the gym swinging wide to reveal Principal Harding, 2 uniformed officers, and behind them, Jessica Hayes, her face pale with fear. "What is going on here?" Harding demands, then falls silent as he takes in the scene. Mendez with his badge, Cooley and Garner near the burning trash can, me standing in the middle of the court like a referee in a particularly deadly game. "Your hiring process needs work, Harding," I say without turning. "You've got a pair of child predators on staff." Cooley makes his move then, lunging not toward the exit but toward me, something flashing in his hand. I pivot, muscle memory from years on the force taking over, catching his wrist as he swings. The knife, a small dark-room tool with a wicked edge, slices air where my face had been. Mendez is on him in an instant, taking him down with a practiced tackle that knocks the wind from Cooley's lungs. The uniformed officers rush forward, one securing Cooley while the other moves toward Garner, who has backed against the storage room door, photographs still clutched to her chest. "It wasn't supposed to be like this," she says, her voice suddenly small. "They needed us, the lost ones, the forgotten ones. We gave them purpose. By hurting them?" The question comes not from me or the officers, but from Oliver, who has somehow slipped in behind his mother. His small face is set in lines of determination and horror. "I saw what you did to them. In the dark room, in the basements of all those houses. I saw it all." Garner stares at him, recognition dawning. "You're like them," she whispers. "The special ones. The ones who can see." "Enough," Jessica says sharply, pulling Oliver against her side protectively. "Don't you speak to him." The officer takes the photographs from Garner's unresisting hands, while Mendez reads Cooley his rights. I catch glimpses of the images as they're collected as evidence. Young faces looking directly at the camera, not candid stalker shots, but posed portraits. Girls in settings that look like basements or sealed rooms, some smiling vacantly, others with tears streaking their faces. In 30 minutes, the gym transforms from a scene of confrontation to a crime scene. Yellow tape cordons off the storage area where officers photograph and bag evidence. Cooley and Garner sit separately in patrol cars outside, awaiting transport to the station. Harding stands in shocked silence as Mendez explains the scope of the case. Multiple jurisdictions, years of suspected abductions, disguised as transfers or dropouts. A trail of children who simply vanished from school records. Through it all, Oliver sits on the bleachers, his mother beside him, both watching the proceedings with identical expressions of exhaustion. I make my way over to them, feeling the weight of the day in every step. "You did good, kid," I tell Oliver, lowering myself onto the bench beside him. "Because of you, they won't hurt anyone else." He looks up at me, those two old eyes swimming with emotions no child should have to process. "They'll think I'm a freak now, more than before. Everyone heard what she said about me being like them." "People fear what they don't understand," I say. "But what you can do, this gift or curse or whatever it is, it saved lives today." "He shouldn't have had to use it," Jessica says quietly, her arm tight around Oliver's shoulders. "He's 12. He should be worrying about math tests and video games, not seeing inside the minds of monsters." She's right, of course. The weight of knowing, truly knowing, the darkness that hides behind normal facades is a burden no child should carry. I've spent a lifetime developing the calluses to handle it, and even now, the images from those photographs will join the parade of horrors that march through my dreams at night. "What happens now?" Oliver asks. "Now the system takes over," I tell him. "Police, prosecutors, courts. It's slow, but it works, especially with evidence like we found today." "And me? What happens to me?" The question hangs between us, more complex than it appears. I consider lying, telling him everything will go back to normal. But Oliver deserves better than comforting fictions. "You keep living, kid. You learn to balance what you know with how to live in a world that doesn't want to know it. It's not easy, But you're stronger than most. The gymnasium lights cast long shadows across the polished floor, the crime scene activity creating a strange choreography of movement and purpose. Outside, through the high windows, the sun dips toward the horizon, painting the sky in colors too beautiful for such an ugly day. "People will talk," Oliver says, watching as Harding gestures emphatically to a newly arrived detective. "About me, about what I knew." "Let them talk," I reply. "Truth is always worth the price." But as I say it, I wonder if that's really true. Oliver will carry this day, these visions, these truths for the rest of his life. The price of seeing clearly in a world determined to look away is paid in isolation, in nights spent awake, wrestling with knowledge others are spared. I know because I've paid it myself, year after year, case after case. Jessica helps Oliver to his feet, wrapping her coat around his thin shoulders, though the gym isn't cold. "We should go home," she says. "The police know where to find us if they need more statements." I watch them walk away, the boy leaning against his mother's side, suddenly looking his age again, small, vulnerable, exhausted. He glances back once, a silent understanding passing between us. We're connected now by the burden of sight, by the knowledge that behind everyday faces lurk secrets most people never glimpse. And as I turn to give my official statement, I can't shake the feeling that this case, like so many before it, isn't truly closed. Cooley and Garner will face justice, but somewhere other predators move among us, wearing perfect disguises, hiding in plain sight. And somewhere other children like Oliver see what the rest of us miss, carrying the weight of that vision alone. The price of clarity is always isolation. The cost of seeing truth is never being able to unsee it again. My phone buzzes. A text from Mendez. "Found something buried in archives. Coming over." 20 minutes later, Mendez appears at my door, manila envelope in hand, his face grave in the harsh hallway light. He's aged since we worked together, hair gone completely gray, lines etched deeper around his eyes. But his cop instincts are still sharp. He takes in the papers spread across my desk with a single glance. "Weber," he says, dropping into the chair across from me. "Knew that case bothered me for a reason." "What did you find?" He pulls a thin file from the envelope. "Report filed 3 years after Weber disappeared, never digitized, kept separate from the main case file. Officer responding to a break-in at an empty house in Ridgemont found photography equipment in the basement. Dark room setup similar to Weber's. Along with these, he slides 3 evidence photos across the desk. Girls' faces, different ages, different schools. School portraits, the kind taken for yearbooks. Photography teacher at each school, Mendez says. Different names each time. Employment records matched a pattern. 2 years at each school, then disappearance when questions started. Last one was Roger Baines, Ridgemont High, 2011. Sound familiar? My throat tightens. The gap in Cooley's history before Oregon. Bingo. Mendez taps the file. Detective who caught the pattern tried to connect it to Weber, but supervision shut it down. Insufficient evidence. Case never officially linked or pursued. Why? Mendez's mouth twists. Politics. Budget cuts. The fact that no one could prove any actual crimes beyond the break-in and false identity. No bodies, no victims coming forward. Just a creep with cameras who kept changing his name and moving on. I study the photos. What happened to these girls? Nothing, far as anyone could tell. They were just photographed, watched. But after Ridgemont, the pattern stopped. We thought maybe he'd moved out of state or finally got caught for something else. Mendez rubs his face. Until now. Cooley, I say, the name bitter on my tongue. You said this Hayes kid somehow knows details only someone who'd seen the case file would know? I nod, unwilling to try explaining Oliver's impossible knowledge. He recognized Weber immediately, knew about the blue flower tattoo, the tapping habit, details that were never public. Mendez leans back, chair creaking. "You thinking of bringing this to Simpson?" Simpson, the current police chief, a by-the-book administrator more concerned with statistics than justice. With what? A closed case file, a kid's testimony they'll dismiss as fantasy, and a hunch that Cooley is Weber? They'll laugh me out of the station. So what's your play? I gather the photos, organizing them chronologically. I confront him, get him to slip up, record it if I can, create enough doubt that the school has to act, enough evidence that Simpson can't ignore it. Mendez's face darkens. Dangerous game, Ray. If Weber has escalated from watching to something worse, all the more reason to stop him now. I look at the clock, 1:23 a.m. But first, I need to warn Jessica Hayes. Make sure Oliver stays far away from Cooley until this is over. Want backup? Mendez asks, the old partnership flickering between us. I shake my head. Not yet, but keep your phone on. The Hayes house is dark when I arrive, save for a single light in what must be the kitchen. I hesitate before knocking, aware of how this will seem. A man pounding on a single mother's door in the middle of the night. But the alternative is worse. My knuckles have barely left the wood when the door swings open. Jessica stands there in sweatpants and an oversized t-shirt, eyes alert despite the hour. Behind her, the kitchen table is covered with papers, bills, probably, the universal midnight torment of single parents. Mr. Marshall? Confusion, then alarm spreads across her face. Is something wrong? Is it about Oliver? May I come in? It's important. She steps back, arms crossing protectively over her chest. Oliver's asleep. What's happened? I follow her to the kitchen, keeping my voice low. I've found evidence connecting Cooley to at least 3 other schools under different names, and confirmation that he's Thomas Weber from the Lakeside case. Jessica sinks into a chair, the color draining from her face. Then Oliver was right. About all of it. Yes. I place the file on the table between us. Weber, or whatever his real name is, has a pattern. He takes jobs as a substitute teacher or photographer, usually in schools where his background won't be scrutinized too deeply. He watches certain students, photographs them. When questions start, he disappears, changes his identity, and starts over somewhere new. Her hands clench around her coffee mug, knuckles white. Has he hurt anyone? No evidence of that, yet. I hesitate, then add, but each time the pattern escalates. More photos, more obsessive behavior, and Cooley's been at this longer than any of his previous identities. Oh, God! Jessica presses a hand to her mouth. And Oliver somehow knew, saw it somehow. She looks up sharply. Do you believe him now? About how he knows things? The question hangs between us. I think of the tied shoelaces at Pinewood Lake, a detail only I knew, of the blue flower tattoo that wasn't in any report, of the tapping gesture that couldn't be researched. I believe your son has access to information he shouldn't have, I say carefully. I don't understand how, but at this point, the how matters less than what he knows. What do we do now? Go to the police? Not yet. I don't have enough for an arrest. But I do have enough to confront Cooley directly. I meet her eyes. In the meantime, Oliver needs to stay home from school. Call in sick, family emergency, whatever works. Just keep him away from Willowbrook until this is resolved. She nods, maternal determination hardening her features. He's not going anywhere near that school. But what about you? If this man is dangerous, I've handled worse. The lie comes easily, though we both know better. Weber, Cooley, is an unknown quantity, a man who's successfully hidden his true nature for 15 years. I just need to get him talking, get him to slip up. Mendez, my contact at the station, is standing by if things go sideways. When will you do it? Tomorrow, after school hours, when the building's mostly empty. I gather the files, tucking them back into the envelope. I'll call you as soon as it's done. Jessica walks me to the door, hugging herself against the chill night air. Mr. Marshall. Ray, be careful. Oliver would never forgive himself if something happened to you because of what he told us. The weight of her words, of a child's concern for my safety, settles uncomfortably in my chest. I'm not used to being worried about. Tell Oliver. I pause, unsure what to say to a boy who knows things he shouldn't. Tell him he did the right thing. Speaking up is always braver than staying silent. She nods, a tired smile briefly warming her face. That sounds like something his father would have said. Would have? He was a firefighter. Died 4 years ago. Ran back into a burning building for a child who wasn't there. Her eyes grow distant. Oliver's knowing things started after that, after the fever. I absorbed this new piece of information, filing it away. Trauma, loss, mysterious abilities emerging after illness. It feels significant, though I can't say why. Lock your doors, I tell her, and call me if anything feels wrong. Anything at all. As I walk back to my car, the night seems to press closer, shadows taking on weight and substance. Somewhere behind one of those darkened windows, Oliver sleeps, carrying knowledge no child should have. And somewhere across town, a man who spent 15 years hiding his true nature prepares for another day of pretending. Tomorrow, one of us will stop pretending. I just hope it's him, not me. My headlights cut through the darkness as I drive away, but the chill that settles between my shoulder blades remains. The confrontation to come feels inevitable now. A collision course set in motion the moment Oliver Hayes recognized a monster wearing a teacher's face. What happens next depends on how desperate Cooley is to keep his secrets, and how far I'm willing to go to expose them.